Welcome to the Pay Yourself First podcast. My name is Chris Jolly, and I'm on a mission to financially empower millions of entrepreneurs. I want you to make and keep more money so that you can begin implementing and turbocharging a plan for creating financial freedom your way during the life cycle of your current business without spending a ton of time or becoming a professional investor. You see, most of the financial teachings out there are made for employees, not entrepreneurs. If you wouldn't listen to someone who doesn't have kids about parenting, why take business financial advice from someone without a business? Are you ready to break free of bad advice and follow the trail of other uncommon entrepreneurs so you can get from where you are now to the lifestyle you were aiming to create when you started your business? Then stick around. Here comes another episode of Pay Yourself First, where the only investment we offer is the one you make in yourself. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Alchemy of Abundance Virtual Summit, where we'll be diving into topics around pleasure, money, and how to have more of both. I'm still Chris Jolly, but this time I am joined by world-renowned coach, author, and speaker Cordelia Gaffar of Cordelia Gaffar Enterprises. She is the ultimate joy goddess, guiding emotionally exhausted women to choose pleasure so that they can enjoy a multi-orgasmic living. That sounds great. And the CEO of Cordelia Gaffar Enterprises, which is a personal transformational company focused on making family life better from the inside out, starting with mothers. Cordelia, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. It's wonderful to have you here. I know you're going to deliver a lot of value to everybody listening, so it's going to be great. Now, your talk is entitled Creating Your Multi-Orgasmic Life and Business. So that sounds fun. Let's dive in. Tell us more.
Well, first of all, multi-orgasmic living has everything and nothing to do with sex.
Okay.
But it has mostly to do with understanding that anything and everything you do has the possibility of pleasure. And it's about releasing the constructs of what's accepted and expected of you, and just really attuning yourself to what it is that really lights you up.
I think that's a great clarification because I think for most people, their mind immediately goes to a sexual orgasm. And while those are great and wonderful, it's definitely not the only way to feel good. So
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so how did you get into all this?
Yeah. So once upon a time, I was a CFO for a tech company, and I decided to give that up so that I could come home and home educate my children. And I now have six, and I home educated them for 20 years. And the first thing I noticed when I had my two little ones back then was I've got to find a way to find some time and space to nurture myself, or I'm going to go nuts. And the more children I had, the more ways to nurture myself I discovered. In the beginning, it was just like, well, what can I eat to give me energy? How do I need to exercise to make me, keep up with these little people? And then it became, and how can I love this moment? And how can I slow down? And how can I enjoy being in my own presence? And how can I enjoy being with my husband more? And as I kept asking those questions, right? It's like the 5-year-old that is so curious, they keep asking, why? So that's pretty much what I did. And I released my marriage 4 years ago. And with that, I was like, okay, I've been working all these years on sustainable practices of self-nurturing. What was I missing? So as you do, I went to tantra school to find out the rest of the story, because everyone does that. And there I found this amazing new world of breath work. Like I had gone to yoga classes and, I've done different modalities, but the form of breath work that I learned in tantra school it definitely opened up my lower chakras, my sacral and my root. And I didn't even know I was numb there. And so I wanted to find out more, the never-ending 5-year-old. And so, of course, now I'm in somatic sexology school. So the somatic healing practices. I didn't even know there was even better breath practices than that. So now I can feel more things. And what I really found is I can create my own joy bubble within with these breath practices and movement practices. In fact, I've created my own form of dance. I call it like ginger bites. And yeah, so where I really move through all the chakras, but just the ones in your body, because proportionately we're more body than we are brain. Although in the Western world, we like to stay up in here all the time, which overwhelms us and lopsides us. So I like to keep it in the body. And yeah, so that's how I got here.
So you're telling me that I can have more pleasure and feel better just by changing the way I breathe?
Yes.
Wow. It's that simple, and yet most people are going crazy trying to figure out how to make their life better.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that interesting? Now you
Well,
brought, oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, and the other part of that is because we are shallow breathers, right? We breathe from here. But once you learn how to use your diaphragm, and you can even take it deeper below your belly button, things start happening.
And it's so funny too, because a lot of people talk about expansion, and the one thing they don't realize is they're not actually expanding themselves.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Okay, now when you were telling your story, you brought up something which I've been talking to people about in this summit. You raised and educated 6 children, and you have a business. How do you find the time for everything? How do you set the boundaries so they don't bleed too much into the other? And how do you keep both of them fun and enjoyable?
Hmm. There's a word that I love to use called harmony. And so when you work in harmony literally with your own body cycles, you have to know what those are, right? Then it opens you up to being in harmony with the cycles of your children as well. And there's almost like a natural set of boundaries that occur. So just to give you a snapshot, what it looks like, I noticed that children below the age of 10 tend to wake up very early, right? I wake up early as well, but their early is a lot later than my early. So I can spend quality time and home educate my little kids before my older kids wake up, right? And the requirements for grades, I would say K through about 4, are no more than about 2.5 hours a day. So essentially from 7 to 9:30, we can have breakfast, go on a hike and do most subjects by 9:30 and be back in time for the older ones to just be getting out of bed, right? And so then for the middle school age kids, the typical schoolwork is about 4 to 4.5 hours, and high school is about 5 hours. So but by the time they get to that age, they've learned how to self-regulate and they have, some kind of routine. So there's less oversight on my part. So it's just a matter of, making sure again that they've had their breakfast, which is usually my snack time, right? Mid-morning for me. And then just get them set up and started. And that's usually when I start my work day, right? And so I'll begin my work day and they'll begin their work day, their school work day, and then I'll check on them. And also we have like check-in points, I would say, during the day. My older kids, they usually tell me, right? And of course, now my high schoolers wake up around noon. And I think that's appropriate. Like one thing I want to kind of freeze frame here is sleep.
Yeah.
So one of the main things that the tenets of self-nurturing, the number one is sleep. And so I honor everybody's sleep schedule, and I make sure that I have enough sleep. It may look really strange to some people as I go through the rest of my day here. You may be like, oh my God, you trust them with that? Yes, I do. Because they're my children and I'm in harmony with them. So, yeah, they wake up and they're just like, Mom, here I am on this, I'm doing blah, blah, blah. And so by the end of the day, it culminates to I need to go to bed by 9 o'clock so that I can wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And yes, I leave my teenagers to clean up the kitchen because I do cook every day, but I don't clean. And they clean up the kitchen, and they finish their day, and we all have dinner together. That's the one meal that, as a family, we can have together. And yeah, so that's how I do it.
Well, it sounds like you've got it all figured out, but I got to tell you, I'm a little exhausted just hearing about it. You sound like super mom and business lady. So, in all of that, how do you find time for yourself to nurture yourself and to find more pleasure in your own life?
Yeah, so everything I do is pleasurable because I always ask myself this question: if I'm feeling imbalanced, right? I'll ask myself, what can I do to enjoy this moment? Or what can I do to make this moment more pleasurable, right? So it may be adjusting the number of cushions I have in my chair. It may be stopping to do some stretches, or it may be dancing to my favorite song, or it may be just taking a nap, you know? So whatever that is, I always tune in and adjust. Also, remember, I said I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I have my morning routine where I do whatever it is, for that day. And if you've read my last book, Detached Love, Transforming Your Heart So You Can Transform Your Mind, you'll see in there in the restructure phase of the Replenish Me process, I talk about how to give each day a theme. So we're on Wednesday. So today's Winning Wednesday, right? So that also helps me to come back to center myself. It's like, do I feel like I'm winning? What can I do to feel like I'm winning today? So,
Excellent. And now you obviously your work is part and parcel with the fact that you went to Tantra school. How do you connect Tantra with business? Besides obviously, helping people learn about it and all that, but there's a great intersection there. Can you kind of explain that to people a little bit?
yeah. So, Tantra helps you to open up your creativity. I talked a little bit about the chakras, and so your root and sacral chakras will be more um, open and fully aligned. In fact, I've kind of taken the information from both Tantra school and sexology school and made my own little understanding where these two chakras in particular are blended into what I call your lotus verse. And your lotus verse is like the portal between worlds because that is where our divinity comes from. That's where our creativity comes from. And that's where you start listening to your body. Like one of the things I was really surprised about is when I started touching just different areas. I guess it's also known as a dantian and the qigong, right? Just the 2 inches below your navel. And when you tune into that area, your body actually speaks. And sometimes when I get stuck in my business and I'm trying to figure something out, I get out of my head and I just breathe and I do a breath and I'll just tune in and like the answer will arise just so simply.
Yeah,
Was that the answer you were looking for? Are you looking for another answer?
that's the answer you gave, and so that's the one I'm looking for. I wanted your take on it, and I think that explains it great. Yeah. Okay, now you work a lot with women and moms. What is something that you find they're kind of consistently doing to sabotage themselves from having pleasure or having more pleasure?
Well, they think too much.
Don't we all?
Think too much and they do too much. Um, I'm about um, inviting you to being. If it seems like it's too much, guess what? You got your answer. It's too much. Don't do it. Just be.
I think that's challenging for a lot of people in today's society because we have it so ingrained in us that we always have to be on the go. There's always some next thing to be done. Especially for parents, they've built it up so much that like if you're not at every single function, if your kids aren't in 9 different classes, if you don't buy them all the things and send them on the trips and all this different stuff, then like you're a terrible parent and it's exhausting and overwhelming to deal with sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Which is why you release what's expected and accepted, and you tune into what is it that your kids want to do. Did you ask your kids if they wanted to be in all those 9 programs?
Probably not.
If they don't want to do it, I'm not going to fight my children to do stuff they don't want to do. And what they do want to do is usually just be with you and lay up on top of you, and talk to you, look in your face and make silly faces and, do silly things. That's what they want to do. But when you don't allow them to do that, guess what? They develop these habits that we end up hating when they're older, right? Like they will engage in games, right? And then you've created a monster because by the time they're 12, 13, 14, they have a whole world in that game, right? And then now they can even make friends on those games. So, and they have people, they're meeting people all over the world that you don't even know, right? And so we create things to worry about just by not having enough time to do all the things that will make us great parents. What will make you a great parent is having a great relationship with your child and looking them in the face and loving them and listening to them. And that's really, it's so simple, but it's so hard because we are conditioned to believe that we have to do what's expected and accepted. And the only thing that should be expected of you is what you expect to do.
Yeah, and one of the worst things for a parent is realizing that they have pushed their children away because they have this idea or this expectation of what that relationship is supposed to be like, or how their kids are supposed to act, or how they're supposed to measure up to other kids, all of these things. And you just kind of drive a wedge between you and your child. And it can be hard to kind of close that after that happens.
Yeah, and I just wanted to put in here this conversation as well because a lot of people may be listening, they're like, oh, well, she homeschooled her kids. Of course, she can do whatever she wants. And some of my kids, like my 16-year-old son, 2 years ago, he was like, Mom, guess what? I want to go to school. And as heartbroken as I was like, great. So he's doing very well in high school, and we still have a pretty, close, loving relationship, even though he lives with his dad. I got divorced 4 years ago. And he I mean, he's doing very well in school. He talks to me. Um, he doesn't really engage in gaming unless he's playing with his sisters, you see. So there's a choice in the matter. They can either have friends across the globe to play with, or you can make your own private group of friends. And so my children usually play together on their games. So I don't want anyone to think that I live in like a, whole different universe. I live in this real world. And so, yeah, I'm aware.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay, Cordelia, I want to talk about men a little bit real quickly. Obviously, you work a lot with women, but my experience and my observation is that more so than women, men spend a lot more time in their head and less time focused on their body and feeling good because a lot of them are very driven, very goal oriented. There's the whole family provider thing to keep up. And so it just can be a very kind of focused tunnel vision mindset. What is something that men can do to find more pleasure, or like what would you recommend to kind of help break them out of those blinders and open up to their body?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the great news is, like, as of late, men have been coming to my workshop. So I have an actual answer for that.
Nice.
Um, Really, it's the same thing. I would have to say our bodies are the same, right? The energy centers are set up the same. So again, for a man, I always direct them to touch their hearts. Because what I've noticed is that when they touch their hearts and they ask that question, what can I do to make this moment more pleasurable, or what would give me joy in this moment? They can hear from their hearts, you know? Another thing is, if they are so disconnected from their bodies or disembodied, um, I also encourage people to always move their shoulders. This is a very important movement, I think, for men, because it almost immediately relieves the pressure of the head. You know, I mean, that's what they say to me. They're just like, wow, I never even thought about moving my shoulders. And so it's just like a figure eight movement, like the Kundalini energy within, right? And it's just when you do it backwards, that's letting go of other people's energy. When you do it forward, it's bringing your energy back into yourself. And so it's been very transformative for the men that attend my workshops.
Well, it's got to be very effective because I'm not even doing it. I'm just sitting here thinking about it and watching you, and I already relaxed like 20%. So that's a great tip. I will definitely use that. And for all the men out there, give it a try. Okay, now for entrepreneurs specifically, when they are running into challenges in their business and they're reaching a place where they don't feel good about where they're at, or it's stopped being fun and they're overwhelmed and they're feeling burnout and it's not going the way that they want it to, what would you say to them, or what direction would you point them in to kind of, get back in touch with that pleasure and make it fun again?
Well, two things. First of all, remember you're not an island, right? So there's like a whole world of entrepreneurs out there. There's this wonderful thing called an Eventbrite. And do a little search, and look for some entrepreneurs in your local area to hang out with. And that'll give you a new perspective. Um, and secondly, I know it sounds super cliche because we've been told this all throughout the pandemic, but really do go out into nature. And I'm not suggesting that you go to nature trails. Nature is outside everywhere, right? Go and sit under a tree and do something that I call tree breathing, right? So you just lean up against the tree, let your lungs be on the tree. And again, same question. I sound like a broken record. Ask for the wisdom from the tree, right? Instead of asking, what can I do to make this moment more pleasurable? It's like, how do you find pleasure in this world, right? And nature talks back too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's so interesting. Trees especially because in many ways they are so diametrically opposed to the way that they are. I mean, we spend all our lives going from place to place, running around trying to get things done. And the tree just stands there. It doesn't move. It just soaks in the sunshine and the rain and takes the nutrients out of the soil. And for the most part, seems very content to never go anywhere and just watch the world pass it by.
Yeah. Or is it? The
Wow.
roots are very deep, you know what I mean? And we exhale what they require and they exhale what we require. And so life isn't passing them by. Life is passing us by when we don't tune into the trees.
Hmm. Very good point. I like that. Okay, Cordelia, um, or I guess what I want to ask is, why do you think that people have almost this like taboo against pleasure? And how do you help them break that conditioning?
Mm. Well, we have been told since we were little, don't touch yourself, don't look at yourself in the mirror. That's naughty. You're not being a good girl, you're not being a good boy. And it's just not true. None of it's true. Touch yourself anywhere. I invite you to, um, may I introduce your wrist? You know, and because this is where we have a lot of our frustrations. This is where we are constantly giving out to others, whether we're typing, right, or texting, or just actually doing. And may I introduce to you your shoulders, right? It's like, just, it's okay. It's okay. Literally, you can tell yourself it's okay. And just you can begin touching yourself in the most obvious places. You're I'm trying to understand how this is working on the screen. So, like stroke your cheek, right? So your facial nerve is very it's a very central place, and it also is the easiest way to calm yourself down. A lot of times our jaws are armored, right? So there's many armoring bands in the body. And just by caressing your facial nerve right here, it can release. And by extension, that also, when your jaws are open, your hips open, right? And I encourage pivoting your hips, like tilting your hip forward and backward, whether you're sitting or standing. And the sensation that it really encourages, it opens up something that you may not be familiar with. There, it is the base of the Kundalini energy, and as I said before, it's the portal between worlds. So that just that little pelvic tilt is just like, oh, I'm feeling like you can even feel your blood flowing again, right? And you may not recognize it because it hadn't been flowing, or because or you've been so numb. And these are very simple pleasures. And also, here's something that we do a lot that we really don't pay attention to besides breathing. It's eating. So when you eat, turn off everything. Just if you have to begin, put a timer on for 5 minutes, and your exercise is to experiment with eating one thing for 5 minutes. Like, take the time to bring it to your mouth. Well, don't bring it to your mouth yet. Look at it, right? Notice, um, let's say, I hope you're not a vegetarian or vegan, but let's say you're eating like a piece of lamb. And so you look and you see how juicy it is, and you allow yourself to smell the aroma, and then allow yourself to guess what it might taste like first. Then slowly open your mouth, but let it touch your lips while you're opening your mouth, and then put it on your tongue and find because there's 7 different taste bud centers, right? So look for the one for the lamb, and then take a small bite, like pull it out of your mouth, take a small bite, and then chew it. And, chew it as maybe 25, 30, 35 times, and just let it mix in with your saliva, around your mouth, and really luxuriate in the flavors, you know? And then do that with every single bite. Now, you may run out of time, so you may have to set it again. But if you eat your food like this, then this is, again, remember I said before, like your jaw is related to your hip. So just imagine if you can experience food like that, imagine what other sensations your genitals can experience when you're with your lover, or even with yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing how all it really takes is slowing down a little bit, a little more mindfulness, and you begin to discover that there's a lot more inherent pleasure in things that you really weren't realizing.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting because I actually am vegan. And as you were saying that, I'm thinking about it and listening to you describe it. And it's so interesting how something can be so pleasurable to one person and such a big turnoff to another. But that's also why it's important to find out what you find pleasurable and what your things are, because if you don't even know what you like, you're going to have a hard time doing more of it and feeling good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And life is an experiment, find what you like and find what you love, and attune yourself to enjoying what you love more often.
Yeah, and you seem like you do a great job of that. Can you tell everybody out there about a time in your business when you were like flying high, feeling maximal pleasure, and what that was like?
Hmm. Let's see. Uh, yes. So a couple of years ago, I did my first retreat on the big island of Hawaii, and it felt amazing. I was like, I had just gone to Hawaii for the first time, believe it or not, like 4 months before, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. I want to bring a small group of women here to experience what I just experienced. And being so focused on wanting the same pleasure for a small group of women that I experienced for myself was what drove me, right? Different kind of giving, right? It's like a go-giver instead of like a servant giver, right? And so I, when I was having those conversations with the women, it wasn't trying to sell them on things. It was like, so I'm listening to what you're saying and what you feel like you're missing. What would it feel like to be in a place where the land was like a glove and it welcomed you? And when the water touched you, it was as if you were reborn. And everything you smelled, you heard, and you tasted was nourishing you and deeply nurturing you. And they were like, oh my God, let me sign up, right?
That sounds amazing.
Because it was like I wasn't even selling, and it was so easy, like boom, boom, boom. 5 women signed up. We went, and when we went to the volcano, right? So the reason why I chose Hawaii is because the different elements. So we experienced fire, water, earth, air. And when we went to the volcano, just like my own experience, so much stuff came up because the fire element is associated with your root chakra, right? Which is what we don't pay attention to ever. And there was so much resistance. And I watched their turmoil, and then I just welcomed and invited them back to themselves, and doing that dance with them, literally and figuratively, right? Um, that was a real high for me, actually. So, yeah. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, Cordelia, before I let you go, you've got a free gift for everyone. The link will be right below this video here so they can go to that. It's called the Soul Release Meditation. Can you explain to everybody a little bit what they're getting there?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I told you I was previously married, right? And one thing that I've noticed is I didn't release the energy of my husband, right? So one day I just told myself, I want to reclaim all of my love for me, right? You love someone for 20 years, it's they're pieces of them with you. And so this soul release meditation will allow you to release the energy of previous lovers and reclaim that energy and love for you. And so I take you through your body, right? And you touch different parts, and you give, the caresses and the kisses that that person gave you back to them, and you create caresses and kisses for yourself. And so you do this all through your body from head to toe. And then there's some more mantras and declarations, and it's a 37-minute process. So you'll very much enjoy that.
I love it. So everybody go ahead and download that. And that's it for this one. Cordelia, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me on the Alchemy of Abundance.
There you go. And everybody else, thank you for joining us on the Alchemy of Abundance Virtual Summit. We will see you on the next talk.
If you've listened this far, chances are you're an entrepreneur looking to become more financially literate and create financial freedom for yourself from your business.
The Pay Yourself First podcast
Is definitely here to help with that. My goal is to continue to share what I've learned about using your business as the tool to create financial freedom. But let's face it, it would take me years to share with you everything you need to know via these episodes. Creating financial freedom is something that most people never even consider, let alone make a plan for or take action towards. It's something almost no one was taught anything about. Doing it as an entrepreneur is even more challenging, especially without support. So if you're ready to get clear on what financial freedom looks like for you, come up with an action plan, and get the support systems and accountability you need, I invite you to consider the Abundantly Infinite Entrepreneur. I created the program to help entrepreneurs just like you get a handle on their personal and business finances and start building confidently towards financial freedom. And it's how you can discover ways to take 10 years off your retirement, add an extra 5 or 6 figures to your portfolio, and finally get clear on what numbers you should be tracking in your business and why. Together, we'll gain clarity around your financial goals and what being financially free would actually look like for you. Then we'll put together a customized game plan to get you there and the accountability to see you through. And by the way, you're also going to get all the spreadsheets you need to run your numbers, lifetime access to the materials, including any updates, and entry into our members-only community. In addition to all the knowledge, coaching, community, and systems that you need to create financial freedom from your business, you'll also receive a free financial assessment, a retirement planning session, and guided meditation aimed at helping you embody the feeling of true financial freedom. So yeah, you can just listen to the free content on these podcasts to help you move towards becoming a financially free entrepreneur. And sure, you'll likely see some results, or you can make the decision to commit to learning, implementing, and embodying what you need to know to create the financially free life you dreamed of when you started your business journey. Click the link in the show notes to answer a quick questionnaire, and you'll be on your way to joining the Abundantly Infinite Entrepreneur.